Okay, so good afternoon, everyone. It is a pleasure to be here with you this afternoon, and I wish you all a warm welcome to the Seychelles Country Summit. My name is Ms. Virginie Quatre, and I work with the Financial Services Authority of the Seychelles as the Director of the Capital Markets and Collective Investment Scheme Supervision section, and I will be your panel moderator for today. So without any further ado, I will explain to you the structure of today's panel discussion. We will start off with two presentations from two of our presenters in order to explain to you the Seychelles Financial Services Authority, the financial services sector landscape. So I will now welcome our two speakers, the first one being Ms. Tira Simeon. Ms. Tira Simeon is the head of the compliance and risk at the AAA Management Services Limited, a licensed fund administrator by the Seychelles Financial Services Authority. She has experience in the domains of risk, financial crime, in cryptocurrencies, compliance, and internal controls. She holds a master's degree in management and an undergraduate business administration degree. She also holds a professional diploma qualification in international investment compliance and risk, further enriching her expertise in the financial services sector landscape. Her presentation is titled Thinking Beyond Borders, a Global Investment Solution. Our second presenter is Mr. Anuj Sharma. Mr. Sharma is the director and co-founder of Abacus Seychelles, a licensed corporate services provider and fund administrator. As a consultant and advisor, he has held a wide range of responsibilities in the international business, financial services, blockchain technology, consulting, and has advised global clients such as MasterCard. His presentation today is titled Investment in Africa, Seychelles as the Gateway. The presentations will provide a deep outline of the financial services sector as already explained, and it will give you a great overview of the regulatory landscape and key case studies. Ms. Simeon and Mr. Sharma, the stage is yours.
Thank you, Virginie. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for joining us today. My name is Tira, and I am the Head of Compliance at AAA Management Services. The objective of today's presentation is to offer valuable insights into the investment opportunities within Seychelles capital market under the FSA. We will also discuss how AAA can support prospective clients in obtaining the necessary license tailored to their specific strategies. So without further ado, let's have a look at the presentation. So AAA, so who we are? AAA is a financial services consulting firm with clients which includes banks, fund and fund managers, investment firms, brokers, fintechs, and so on. AAA is licensed by the Seychelles Financial Services as a fund administrator. Our team provides unique and tailored services in fund administrator, corporate services, risk management, regulatory compliance, human resource, IT, governance, innovation consulting to financial institutions in the Seychelles. So why Seychelles? Why would you, as a client, choose Seychelles to invest in? Why would you choose Seychelles as an investment opportunity? Well, Seychelles is not only a beautiful country and a paradise, as you all may know. Well, Seychelles also provides Seychelles ideally is situated between major trades and manufacturing channels of Asia, Europe, and Africa. It offers a unique platform for investment into these key global areas. Seychelles also offers a number of competitive advantages, as you can see from here, including tax treaties, political and economic stability, no restrictions on repatriation of profits and capital, and Seychelles also is a member of COMESA, SADC, and the African Union. So now we will explore some of the Seychelles capital market investment vehicles being offered under the FSA under the capital market section. So some of the popular licenses are mutual fund license, the Seychelles securities dealer license, and the investment advisor license. We'll have a look first at the mutual fund license in Seychelles. So it's an investment vehicle, of course, that pools money across asset classes, licensed by the FSA and regulated by the Mutual Fund and Hedge Fund Act 2008. The act itself, of course, focuses on transparency and investor protection. Under the license, a client has the option to choose different types of structures so that they can set up their funds. Being the most common one is the IBC, which is very common and flexible. Under the IBC, a client has two common share classes, Class A with voting rights and Class B with no voting share in return. Other type of structure includes limited partnerships, protected sale company, and as well trust. Under the mutual fund license, there are 4 types of fund structure that a client also can choose from. First one, we have the private fund. So we'll have a look at their criteria. So the private fund requires no more than 50 investors and prohibits any public invitation to subscribe for shares. And the advantage to this is that no minimum or maximum investment are required. The second one is the public fund. So this fund is designed to be mass marketed. Applicants, of course, need to furnish a detailed offering document, and the authority needs to be satisfied that all risks and plans of the fund are disclosed upfront. The last one is the third one is the professional fund. This is aimed at institutional or high net worth investors, and the initial minimum investment per investor is 100,000 USD. The last one is called the exempt foreign fund. This type of fund does not require to hold the Seychelles fund license, but it must be administered by a Seychelles licensed fund administrator, which we, AAA, we are. As a fund administrator, AAA, we act as an independent check on behalf of our investors. We provide full reporting and fund accounting services, as well as maintenance of books and records, namely share registers and register of directors. We also do net asset value calculation for our clients, and we assist our clients in seeking custodians, legal advisor, as well as auditors. So what are the benefits of setting up a fund in Seychelles? Well, Seychelles has a favorable regulatory environment. And of course, as I've mentioned previously, with flexibility of fund structure. And also, good to note, the application process is very efficient, up to 3 months, given, of course, that our client has provided all required KYC documents that is necessary. And of course, we allow foreign mutual funds in recognized jurisdiction. So this slide just basically shows the process of setting up a license up until we get the approval from the FSA, which usually takes 8 to 12 weeks. You just can have a look. The next license, which is actually one of the most popular licenses in Seychelles, whereby we get a lot of clients from all over the world, is called the Securities Dealer License. It's also known as the Broker's License to many. Under this license, you can trade in different types of securities, either as principal on its own account or agent on behalf of clients. So under this type of license, permitted securities, as you can see, are shares, warrants, debentures, options, loan stock, bonds, and so on. So here we'll have a look at the licensing condition for a securities dealer license under the regulatory framework of the Seychelles FSA. The first one is the minimum initial capital requirement is only $50,000. You need a local incorporated entity, a minimum of 2 shareholders, of course no local requirement, but corporate shareholders are allowed. We also need 2 minimum natural directors, which has to be fit and proper as per the requirement of the Securities Dealer Act, and a representative officer, which also needs to be fit and proper, which can be one of the directors. Further requirements, a licensed securities dealer will need a fit and proper compliance officer. They will also, the compliance officer has to be either employed with the licensee or can be locally outsourced, which we AAA can help support our clients with that. You also need a public officer, insurance cover. You need infrastructure in Seychelles. So you basically need an office in Seychelles. So you can meet the substance requirement of the act, and you need an auditor for audited account submission. So here you can have a look. The table shows some of the regulatory obligations and reporting of a licensed SDL in Seychelles. As you can see, from yearly, biannually, or every quarterly. So based on the regulatory obligation of a licensee. So the last one we're going to have a look at is the investment advisory license. So this is a license which allows a company to provide investment advice, manage portfolio, and issue analysis or reports concerning specific securities. The license is particularly beneficial for investment groups, individuals and companies worldwide who manage and advise for investment funds, and high net worth individuals for wealth management. The key condition licensing for an investor advisory license is similar to the securities dealer, as they fall under the same umbrella. A Seychelles domestic company, firstly, employed at least 2 fit and proper directors, 1 individual licensed as a securities dealer representative, and 1 compliance officer. The minimum capital requirement is 25,000 USD. Run the operation from Seychelles, employ a Seychelles resident compliance officer, and obtain professional indemnity. So as AAA, what we can offer you is provide support services from inception to post-licensing. What we do is that we prepare licensing application, including all supporting documents for our client, which include like business plan, compliance manual, and procedures. We also assist our client by providing outsourcing support services such as compliance and accounting, as well as company secretarial services, offering of legal documents, and of course, and most importantly, liaise with the local authorities to ensure that the company is in compliance with the laws prevailing in Seychelles. So in conclusion, I would say that Seychelles presents a wealth of investment opportunities in a picturesque and thriving environment. Whether you are interested in fund management, corporate solutions, regulatory compliance, or innovative investment strategies, we stand ready to guide you towards prosperity. The Seychelles Archipelago is not only a stunning paradise, but we're also a hub for strategic financial growth. So thank you very much. If you require further information, my contact is up there. Thank you.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, Tira, for your presentation. There it is. Okay, thank you. Tira talked about different structures that we have present in Seychelles. And now my presentation will focus on how you as potential investors into Africa can use those structures. Right? Because people ask us, firstly, I've been talking to so many people here, they say, okay, is Seychelles part of Africa? And how do you use these structures for investment into Africa? So I say clearly the answer to the first one is a resounding yes. Seychelles is very much part of Africa. We work very closely with the South African groups like SADC and East African groups like COMESA and an integral part of the continent. So the second question people ask is, how do we use Seychelles to get into Africa and invest into Africa? And that's what my presentation is going to cover. So. Okay. Okay. So Seychelles has, interestingly, a very good set of double tax treaties with Africa. Not many of us are aware that, especially in Southern Africa, which is in Zimbabwe, Botswana, South Africa, in Eastern Africa with Uganda, also discussing with Kenya and Mauritius, we have a good set of double tax treaties, which allows us to create a lot of positive structures which are tax efficient and capital gains efficient with good corporate governance for investments into Africa. Seychelles structures thrive on good corporate governance. Essentially, as we will talk about how, in terms of regulation and compliance, Seychelles has moved several steps to become one of the leading financial service centers in the region now. Obviously, our structures offer an optimal tax advantage in case of double tax treaties, and Seychelles has very strong capital market legislation. So how do we now use this to our advantage for structuring in Africa? Just to recap for a minute, why do we invest in Africa? All of us know that Africa is a good story, and that's why we are all here. But just to recap, we have a big market, we have the growth trends, we have the resources, we have the people, talented people, and we have the drive, people who have the drive to create value out of all of that. So I think that is well established in this conference already, that we do want to invest in Africa. So how do we invest in Africa? So these are different tools, different products that Seychelles has, which stem widely from mutual funds that my colleague talked about, to investment and security dealers, to companies, and to wealth products like trusts and foundations. So let's move into some case studies now. And this is what I mentioned, that we'll talk of a few examples of how companies have used Seychelles to invest into Africa. So let's imagine there is a fintech company which is based in Zimbabwe, Botswana, and Uganda. And let's say it's a mobile payment company. And then there is a fund which wants from London or US, which wants to invest into these companies. So one way is to straight away go into these companies, one by one you start investing in them. The other is to keep a holding structure, which could be a fund, a private fund, like we have in Seychelles, and invest in the private fund. And that private fund, in turn, start investing in all these three countries. So Seychelles provides that structure to go into multiple countries tomorrow if this company wants to expand into other geographies, or even if it wants to acquire other companies or gets merged into other companies. All that can be handled through a Seychelles private fund. Interestingly, I was reading that now we have Africa tech companies which are beginning to acquire companies. Typically, we've heard of companies being acquired in Africa. So recently, there was a company in Nigeria which is acquired, an Alabama-based tech company. So you are trying to now, you're going to see a lot of reverse acquisitions as well. So having a structure which is neutral to both jurisdictions is eventually going to help these transactions. Okay, so there's a lot of material here. We just look at the headline. It's the headline which will really tell us, what this structure is about. So let's talk about an eco-power company, which wants to invest in East Africa, and how a Seychelles company can be used for that. Right? We know that there is a lot of projects in the space of solar energy and eco-power, which are coming up in Africa, and there's a lot of interest in investment. So how Seychelles can be useful there? Of course, Seychelles itself is at the forefront of environmental, I would say, not only legislation, but also sustainability. So in that sense, Seychelles gets that credibility for having people coming to Seychelles and then investing into such projects. But on a practical basis, you will use what we call a special license company, where we use a double tax treaty between the investee country and Seychelles. And this company actually is used for investing and also taking operational decisions, not necessarily at the ground level, but at the governance level. So we have a dual structure where the Seychelles is a holding company for the investee company in, let's say, Uganda or Kenya, where the solar power energy company is there. But we have the corporate governance in Seychelles, and also eventually the flow of funds and dividends happens through the Seychelles company. So let's look at another example. So education technology is a big center in Africa, where we see that a lot of edtech companies are coming up and they are getting invested in. So we've had recently a large number of investments going into edtech sector in Africa. So typically edtech companies, they have IP based on either content or design or the way they project their technology in the space of education. So here is where we have a Seychelles holding company, which can be used to hold the IP of the edtech company. So that's another way in which we can invest into EdTech company through a Seychelles company which holds the IP, which can eventually be either traded or in case you want to partner with countries in other part of the world, it's holding the IP. So that's another way to hold the structure from Seychelles. Okay, yet another example. We talked about securities dealer license. Seychelles is a very strong capital market jurisdiction. So here we have, in case there are Forex funds, Forex platforms who are acquiring customers in Africa. We can see that Forex trading is picking up all across the world, and in Africa is a big market for that. So we see a lot of Forex platforms which are getting licensed in different parts of the world are targeting Africa as a market. So there again, Seychelles becomes a very strong center to set up a license for securities dealer in Seychelles, and then use that license and the trading platforms that the companies will create to acquire customers in Africa. Okay. So moving on to another one, the final one, the fifth one, insurance. I think insurance is a sector there. Again, a lot of organizations are planning for offshore insurance, to spread into different countries. So instead of going into, let's say, 5 countries in Africa separately, we can set up a non-domestic insurance structure in Seychelles, and which can be the leading company which can allow you to invest in insurance companies all across Africa. So we see a lot of interest in this space. So if we look at summary of the few examples I gave, we can see that in sustainability, in tech, in finance, and fintech, these are the areas where Seychelles has really specialized in terms of investments in Africa. Okay, so that's a summary of various products we have, and we can see that our proximity and just outside of the mainland, but very much part of Africa, allows us to create these structures for investments. We have a video here. So thank you very much. And now we look forward to having a discussion on various aspects of Seychelles legislation and the opportunities that we bring in. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Sharma and Ms. Simeon, for the very insightful presentations, which I'm sure will be followed with very interesting panel discussions. With that being said, I will now introduce our panelists for today. Our panel will first of all consist of Ms. Zenabe Daman, who is the Deputy Chief Executive Officer of the Financial Services Authority of the Seychelles. Ms. Daman has over 15 years of experience in leadership, strategy, and innovation across the non-banking financial services field. Welcome, Ms. Daman. And our second panelist will be Ms. Dedrey. She is presently the Director of the Insurance, Gambling, and Pension Supervision with the Financial Services Authority as well, and she holds almost 10 years of experience within that sector. Thank you, Ms. Zenabe, for joining us. As already introduced as well, we have Mr. Sharma and Ms. Tira Simeon, who are both industry representatives. So please join us on stage as well. And last but not least, let us also welcome Mr. Roland Laljee, who is also from the Seychelles and is representing the Seychelles Investment Board, who holds 15 years of experience in marketing, public and corporate relations, and is also now presently the Director for the Investment and Promotion at the Seychelles Investment Board. So let us please give them a round of applause. So, as seen from the presentation, you can see that Seychelles is not just a touristic destination. Seychelles is positioning itself as a relevant and robust financial services center. I am sure that the presentation has set the right scene for some very opening discussion with the panelists. Having welcomed the panelists here with me, my initial thoughts and questions will be first of all directed to Ms. Daman. Ms. Daman, please provide us with a general overview of how you would describe the non-bank financial services environment within the Seychelles, and what would be the biggest opportunities?
Thank you, Virginie. When I look at things from a regulatory standpoint, I would be the first to say that Seychelles, as a very small island state and very young in the field of the non-banking financial services sector, faces and continues to face great challenges in this space. And the range of challenges are many. It ranges from the regulatory side and also infrastructural. However, as I reminisce about the path that Seychelles has taken over the last 25 years to position itself within that space, two words comes to mind for me to describe Seychelles within that financial environment. And for me, that's progression and dynamism. A lot of effort has been done by Seychelles as a small island state, especially when we consider the various challenges that Seychelles had to undergo in terms of adhering to the norms of international regulatory standards from the OECD, EU, and all that. So, a lot of work has gone into positioning Seychelles as a sector with a sound and solid regulatory framework, focusing on compliance and adhering to the standards of AML, CFT, and framework, and basically bringing Seychelles to that standard on the regulatory scene, the international regulatory scene. And furthermore, Seychelles, my colleagues, basically Tira and Anuj from the presentation, they really went into the details in terms of the diversification that Seychelles had to undergo. Everyone knows Seychelles has this place with white sands and beach and tourism. But along the last few years, we've realized that it is important for a small island state to diversify its range of products. So financial services is quickly coming up as maybe not yet the first pillar, but why not? It has the potential for it to develop into becoming a strong sector for the Seychelles, for a small island state like Seychelles. So government is keen to develop the sector and diversify into value-added products. And as my colleagues presented earlier, why not Seychelles positioning itself as a gateway through Africa?
Thank you for that, Ms. Daman. This is very insightful, and I would agree with you that Seychelles has a very interesting history when it comes to financial services. And you would see that even on the international scene as well. Within the capital market sector, we do have great collaboration with international bodies, and we are really striving in terms of compliance, AML, CFT, which is very interesting. And Ms. Serret, what about from you, from the insurance sector standpoint?
Okay, thank you, Virginie. So similarly, stemming from what the deputy talked about, on the insurance side, like with all the other jurisdictions, Seychelles has seen the shift to the risk-based framework in terms of how it will license and regulate our entities. So over the past 6 years, we have been actively working and implementing a risk-based framework, which is based on international principles and standards to make sure that we make Seychelles a reputable jurisdiction that will allow for more investors and licenses to come in and operate and benefit from all the advantages that they would like in terms of an effective and robust regulatory environment.
Thank you for that as well. You can see that Seychelles is really positioning itself. So given that our colleagues have taken their time to give us a very insightful and informative presentation as well, can we have a few comments with regards to the financial services sector landscape within the Seychelles, and what are the opportunities with regards to investing in Africa, especially Seychelles itself? So, Ms. Simeon, Mr. Simeon and Mr. Sharma.
Okay. When you look at the private sector, I would agree with the regulator when they say Seychelles, the regulatory framework is growing and it's progressive. And of course, our aim is to make sure that we are compliant with all of the international standards, the OECD, FATF, and that is the utmost important for us. And, but I would say what gives Seychelles the competitive edge over our competitors. Seychelles, as you can see from the panel here, we have the regulator, we have the private sector, and we have Seychelles Investment Board. So we don't have like a tight-knit sort of relationship. We do have a good relationship with the regulator, and that sort of gives us the competitive edge. And this is something that our client looks for. And regardless of what amendments and changes and upcoming trends that is coming, we have this communication with the FSA, and we discuss, how this is going to impact our client. And we, as in the private sector, we make sure we give them hands-on after-sales services. We sort of make sure that they are comfortable to make the changes, because the changes is going to happen, because that's the aim of Seychelles. We want to be compliant. We have to make sure that compliance and transparency is our top priority. But how can we help our clients to undergo those changes? And that is where we come in. So we make sure that our client understand and adjust to those type of changes. And it's just a call away. We just, a call away, we can get assistance from the FSA. And so this is sort of what gives us the competitive advantage, I would say, and sort of, get clients from abroad to come to Seychelles to invest.
Yeah, thank you. Just to add to what Tira said, see, one thing is that Seychelles is very much open to business. People who want to invest in Africa and are looking at alternative jurisdictions, Seychelles should be in our consideration set. Simply because, as we said, we have very good regulation, we have experience, we have structures, we have the products, right? And we have the initial structures which have been set up and are successful. So first thing is, we are open for business. Come and let's consider Seychelles to invest in Africa. The second is how Seychelles has shown its success in certain products that it focused on. I will take one example of a success story of security dealer's license. One of the products we started working in 2010 or 11. And at that time, the market was just expanding on how people are setting up trading platforms and they need offshore licenses for that. And Seychelles took the lead in that product. And today in the whole region, it's actually the market leader for any platform that wants to, offshore platform which has to be set up for either forex trading or for any investment advisory. So which means that even a smaller jurisdiction, when it focuses on certain products, right, focuses on certain platforms, you can attain market leadership. So now, having seen the strength that we have shown in securities dealer, establish ourselves as a market leader, now Seychelles is moving towards becoming a full-fledged financial center, albeit small at this stage, but a full-fledged financial center with a whole range of products, right? And with so much of investment coming into Africa and the region, we need a lot of alternatives. We see even sectors like Rwanda. We see Rwanda, which is actually a mainstream country trying to become a financial center. Of course, we have Mauritius, which is a market leader in our region. But if you look at Seychelles, with its unique double tax treaties that it has, the success in capital market products like security dealers offers a wonderful alternative to consider for yourself to invest in Africa and in the region.
Wow, very, very interesting indeed. It actually gets you really thinking. And speaking of collaboration, we also have our colleague here from the Seychelles Investment Board. So please, Mr. Laljee, please provide us with your perspective of the outlook, the opportunities within the Seychelles, the investment opportunities, and especially the non-bank financial services sector.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Virginie. I think, like you said, we also have many opportunities to invest, not only in the non-banking sector. We recently, Deputy touched upon the good relationship we have with the various international organizations. we recently launched the investor roadmap, but we partnered with the UNDP in Seychelles, whereby we have identified key investment opportunity areas that investors can come into Seychelles and invest into, such as renewable energy, solar grid panels on the buildings, floating PV panels. These are areas that we're looking at investing, fisheries into the blue economy. So that what we're saying is that we're diversifying the base. We're moving away from only sun and sea and tourism, but also diversifying the base to more opportunities, look for more opportunities to invest.
Yeah, most definitely. And most of the keywords you would hear today is collaboration, being dynamic, and making yourself relevant. And I think this is what every country is striving for, especially the Seychelles. And you can really see that the Seychelles has really developed and still developing immensely within the sector and in general. And it gives a really promising outlook. And with that being said, we will now also allow the audience to please provide any questions to the panelists. We have very experienced persons with us today. So any questions up until now from the audience? Okay, thank you very much. But yes.
So I just wanted to know how Seychelles will be coping with the introduction of a global minimum tax at some stage.
What?
Yeah, the mic, please.
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yes,
Yeah.
we can hear you.
No, I was saying, I just wanted to know how Seychelles will be coping with the global minimum tax,
Yeah.
as well as the OECD, coming with tax reforms and all this. Would there be changes in the tax regime in Seychelles moving forward?
Okay, okay, I can answer that. See, I think a lot of changes are coming in, a lot of changes are happening, and we welcome the global minimum tax regime, right? It's something that professionals and jurisdictions across the world have been waiting for several years, that we reach a stage where there is a certain cutoff that everybody has to bring the fields to a certain level when it comes to taxation. And then you can compete on other parameters, how good your infrastructure is, how good your treaties are, how good your structures are. So we welcome that. So, and if FATF says that this is the GMT and you have to follow it, and other countries are following it, Seychelles will go with that, for sure. Of course, it depends whether is it going to be en masse, that is for all kind of structure, or will there be leeway that, okay, the companies have to come under that, but you could have special licenses which are in a different scenario. So I think we will at that time consider that, but we are very much open to going with what FATF suggests, because Seychelles can compete on other spaces other than tax as well, as should be for all other jurisdictions. So looking forward to when that comes in. But I think we are a few years away from that. Yeah.
Thank you for that, Mr. Sharma. Any other thoughts from the panelists?
Yes, please.
Okay, so we also have another question from the audience.
Firstly, thank you very much for the interesting presentations. Does the Seychelles offer any types of incentives for businesses to invest via the Seychelles? For example, we are actually looking at setting up a development company to develop software. And we've noticed that a lot of other jurisdictions around the world, the government provides certain tax incentives and things like that. And we want to just understand if the Seychelles offers any of that. Thank you.
Okay.
Go.
Maybe I can answer from the regulatory side of the business in terms as we're responsible for licensing and registration of companies. So definitely we have a variety of licenses and products that we will issue licenses to. And like you mentioned, development of software, that is something. We also have the free zone under the administration umbrella of the FSA. So that is something that can be catered for under consultancy licensing and things like that. So, but it depends really on the detail, the nitty-gritty of your project. And once an application is submitted to us, it will be assessed, and options can be provided, but as well working directly with the management companies that are licensed by the FSC. They are expert in giving out advice and consultancy and whatever, paving the way for any companies or setup that you will want to incorporate within Seychelles. So I recommend at the end of our session to speak to our 2 management companies that we have there, and I'm pretty sure they can provide you with a solution. Yeah.
Well, just specifically to add to that, Zenabe, on software, see, there's been a lot of requests, like you have Tech Nomad, which is a big concept now. Countries like Indonesia, Bali have started setting up centers, right, where they encourage software professionals to come in and set up specialized centers. So Seychelles also has considered, where in future looking at some special zones where there could be possibility of having, software professionals coming in. Even right now we have free zone that Zenabe mentioned where we can set up, and you can get incentives there to create software and then export it to different countries. So we have that legislation through the free zone. Software is one of the options there. So definitely we can, as you said, consider how to put your structure for software in the free zone today. So the possibility exists for sure. And as we go forward, we would be creating more free zones like for tech nomads and the countries, the professionals who want to come in and create software in Seychelles.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sharma. So any other questions from the audience? Okay, so then I actually do have certain questions because as our panelists have explained, the Seychelles does have quite a very interesting future. They do have a plan and an outlook. So then my thoughts on that would be in terms of what would be the emerging trends? So what do the panelists see that would be the emerging trends when it's based with regards to the Seychelles?
I think, should I kick it
yes,
up?
Yes, Ms. Daman, because...
So I guess the topic of the day today is fintech. Virtual assets. So everyone, this is something that we on the regulatory side, we've noticed. And we actually have a lot of our companies that are basically participating in that sector. But the challenges that we're getting is that most of them are operating and they are unregulated. Basically, they don't have a license. So Seychelles, we're actively looking into capturing that type of business in terms of exploring the possibility of setting up our own virtual assets. Countries like Mauritius, our neighboring country Mauritius, and also other African counterparts like Namibia, South Africa, they've basically led the movement in terms of having been able to establish the required regulatory framework to capture these type of businesses. So Seychelles is actively following that footstep to set up its framework to be able to regulate these kind of activities, because for us, these companies operating within our space and they are unregulated, it is actually a risk, a huge risk for the jurisdiction. So that is why that we're actively exploring it, and the idea is maybe towards the second quarter of 2024, Seychelles will be coming out with its framework for the licensing of virtual assets within its shores.
And I would definitely agree with you, Ms. Daman, because within this day and age, having investment, you don't only think about the returns. Risk management is very important, and being on the forefront of it, managing your risk, it is really important, and these are things that a jurisdiction should be able to offer. So from the insurance side, Ms. Tira, can you please provide us with your standpoint?
Yeah, we were discussing this earlier. So in terms of insurance, what we have seen lately in terms of climate change and ESG issues, this has had a prevailing influence within the local market. We have seen the firms locally having to try to understand these issues and how they can work with it, especially how to adapt to it, to put it into their own operations on a daily basis, especially in terms of them adapting and complying to the regulatory requirements. So for me, this has been something that is prevailing in the insurance industry.
It's definitely true as well. And from our colleagues from the industry, so what would be the solutions? Because our regulator over here are on top of it, identifying the risk and focusing on these emerging trends, being your cryptocurrencies, your ESG, sustainability issues. Our colleagues from the SIB even touched on it with regards to the government commitment. So what would be the solutions from the industry perspective?
Okay. So,
Well, on my side, well, being in the private sector, we actually do get a lot of questions when it comes to virtual assets, cryptocurrency trading and all that. A lot of clients actually want to, to dab into this area. And it is actually something that we are very excited about and waiting on for, for the regulations to come out. Because we sort of understand, being in the industry, you understand what the client is looking for. We understand what are the, the requirements and what they are looking for. And so basically what we are looking for is that once, the regulator has come up with the framework, we are looking to, meet with them and have a discussion and see how, we can remain compliant with, best regulatory framework, but at the same time, we become competitive when we compare ourselves with other jurisdictions providing the same type of, virtual asset framework. So this is sort of what we are looking for.
I think it also is dependent on Seychelles' positioning, how we are positioning ourselves. Very clearly, naturally, our positioning is moving towards capital markets and financial services, very naturally. I could see that two distinct positionings. One is capital market financial services, and other is more towards investments in other continent. So while that is happening, but I can see our strength has got established in capital markets. So we must capitalize on that further, on the capital markets, and make it stronger. So virtual asset becomes then a natural forward integration into that, right? We are very good at security dealers licenses. We are very good at investment advisory. The next logically is a virtual asset license. So we would go in that direction for sure, so that people can visualize Seychelles as one of the key jurisdictions in the region for capital markets. Now, on the second positioning, which is investing in Africa, we are getting started there. Like as I said, some of the jurisdictions have a lead there. We are just getting started there. And while we are focusing on our strength on capital markets, we would also be working on how we could encourage structures to invest into Africa. So I see these two as a strong trends emerging from Seychelles. One with the position of strength, and second is which is emerging.
Thank you so much for that, Mr. Sharma. So from our colleague from the SIB, what would you see would be the emerging trends right now within the Seychelles?
I think it's highlighting what was been said already in terms of strengthening the regulations as a jurisdiction. I think this is what the country is doing right now, is ensuring that whilst we're looking in for investments to come in, as a jurisdiction, we strengthen our position, our laws, and so that we're very competitive, but very regulatory as well.
Thank you for that. So you can see that despite being quite small, that we actually have a team that is very proactive in setting the scene, having the right structures in place. With that being said as well, do we have any further questions from the audience of which you want to share or any thoughts with the panelists? Okay. So given that our colleagues over here have stressed a lot on compliance, being a small jurisdiction at times, you would see that, as Ms. Daman has mentioned, you have such international standards and requirements for you to meet. You have different needs. So based on the emerging trends on virtual assets and the dominance of sustainable finance, what would our panelists say would be the steps that the Seychelles would be taking with regards to this? How is the Seychelles position with respect to the international compliance and best practice standards? What can we expect from the Seychelles?
Well, basically, I mentioned earlier, as a small island state, the challenges we get in terms of adhering to the international standards. We take it positively and proactively as the government, because we want to adhere, we want to be compliant, but as well the challenges that we get sometimes is the fact that the goalpost changes more often than we will want, and that makes it difficult because as we look towards adhering to certain requirements, a lot of work is put in working in updating legislations on, and that for a small country like Seychelles, it's not an easy process because in order to get a law to become to be adapted, it has to go through a process of cabinet, policy decisions and all that. So as we see that there are continuous changes in the international landscape and in terms of compliance, this makes our life a bit difficult, and that's where the challenge comes in, where we always have to strive to be on top of things. But the commitment of government is there to meeting international regulatory requirements in terms of compliance, EML CFT measures, and basically getting Seychelles to that international level whereby we also maintaining the reputation of the country and following the high movers within that space.
Yeah. That's so right. I was recently in Cyprus in one of the conferences, and for once, people were telling me, "Oh, you guys regulate a lot," and so we took it as on the positive side, because previously, people would have thought that okay, well, if we were to draw a line between regulation and customer friendliness, we were slightly on the right side. Now we see the right balance is being struck. Because of Seychelles' commitment to adherence to the international compliance norms, and it makes the sector stronger. It protects your structures when you set up in Seychelles. And your structures have to last many years. Strong compliance makes it stronger. So I think that's a path we have taken. And now it's being actually even commended by our clients outside that, you make our life a little tough, in terms of compliance, but our structures are safer. So I think we are absolutely in the right trend there. And we're looking at an international financial center, over the next 20, 30 years. We invite you to have your structures, which can last that period. And we make sure that they are compliant through follow of our regulations and through constant communication with you through our business teams. So I think we totally endorse this movement towards keeping a very good balance between compliance and customer friendliness. Right? Thanks.
Thank you for that, which I actually do agree. We see that we actually have a team within the Seychelles who's actually more solution driven, because when you look at compliance should be business enablers rather than being stumbling blocks. And despite the Seychelles having its stumbling blocks, you see that there is a team which is very collaborative, which when you are considering cryptocurrency issues and even sustainability, collaboration is really important. When you even break down aspects of ESG, considering the environment, the social, the governance, for it all tying together, collaborativeness and solution-driven is really important. And compliance is actually a big part of the puzzle, and the Seychelles has the right outlook, having compliance as a business enabler rather than being a stumbling block. And I guess our colleagues from the industry does understand it best, especially with Tira as well. So anything to add based on these discussions how do you see the Seychelles preparing itself to set itself on the regulatory and compliance standards?
Well, when you look at the regulatory framework today, as we have already discussed, compliance, of course, is important. But what I would say give us, Seychelles, that little difference is just like Anuj has, have made a remark on, we sort of balance the two. So we understand what the client wants, but at the same time, compliance is, our top priority. Of course, when the challenges come, for example, when there is a changes to the law, there's an amendment, the client comes to us, they cry. They say, oh my God, now how are we going to do this? How are we going to maintain our business? This is coming. coming, this is coming. So what we do is we try, we calm down our client. We give them advice. We consult them. We sort of make them feel comfortable, but at the same time, we told them that this is what needs to be done, and this is how you can trust Seychelles. So they see that Seychelles, of course, is meeting all the international regulatory standard, but at the same time, we make sure we give them good services, good consultancy, so that they feel comfortable to do business in Seychelles and keep their structure within the Seychelles.
That's really, really great insight. So it shows that the Seychelles is being very, very proactive, and managing expectations at the forefront is really, really important. So based on the subject matter, any comments from Mr. Laljee and Ms. Tira?
I think definitely Seychelles we're looking striking the balance as well between compliance and welcoming new. From SIB's perspective, we definitely work with our clients, all investors coming in, understand their projects, and take it through with the regulators, because as SIB, we're a facilitator. But it depends on other bodies. But we welcome, we take it through, we walk through with the clients, we explain and manage expectation, because it's very important to have the investors coming in, but also finding the balance as well.
Which definitely is not easy. Having balance between regulation and the business is very difficult. But you would see here on the panel today, having the regulator and the industry, it sees the very important collaboration. Despite, I'm sure all the time they do get into these fights, but collaborativeness is very important, and you can see that as well from our panels here today. So before we keep on boring you with our own discussions, because we can go on until tomorrow. So any questions from the audience based on the subject matter, any clarifications? Okay, so I actually do have a lot, because I want to take this opportunity having these experts over here today with us. So with regards to, given that we have mentioned managing risk, so from the industry perspective, most especially, because we want to see how, because when you want investors want a place they can trust. So how is it that the industry is at the forefront? Because we've heard from the regulator about how they are doing their parts on managing these risks, identifying, putting in place the legislative framework. But with regards to compliance, the real compliance work, as we know, it comes from the industry. So as the regulator sets up the framework for the industry, how is it that the industry is managing its risk? And in terms of, especially as mentioned by the Deputy CEO, with having such AML risk in place, and Seychelles being perceived as an offshore jurisdiction, so how is the industry at the forefront of it?
I think the front door of the jurisdiction is opened by the industry. So you have to manage the risk at that point. When you're managing customer relationship at that point, you're acquiring customers, risk is part of that. So I think understanding of compliance by the industry professionals, not only the compliance team, but even by the salespeople who go out and talk to the customers is very important. Because you can many times have onboarding a customer who's not following the norms, and your compliance team tells you that it's not right. So industry has to play the role at the first stage. So for example, if we were to have a certain client who wants a security dealer's license, and we have to submit it to the regulators to get the license done. So we have to ensure that the license gets approved. So we have to make sure at the first stage itself, we've done our due diligence with the client, the risk is assessed, whether the customer is at the right place or not. And if we have to reject, we reject the customer. So I think that a very important role is played of risk assessment at the first level. That also keeps our strike rates high. If we get it right, we can get 100% of our licenses approved. So I think compliance has become a way of life now, not only for the regulator, but more so for the industry professionals. So in fact, just as an aside, we were talking about compliance training, how important it has become for frontline staff of most financial services organizations. So that the risk gets managed in parts, definitely at the front door with the industry, and in case there is any part left with the regulators. So our idea is we manage the risk, we get the right clients and the right applications. So from a regulator point of view, it's almost 100% strike rate in terms of approving it.
Most definitely, and this is how you actually grow in the right direction, as Seychelles also maintains its reputation, growing in the right direction. So how would you say Seychelles compares with other jurisdictions? And I'm sorry to my industry colleagues, but we want to hear from you to understand how does the Seychelles compare to other jurisdictions?
Well, my point of view on what makes us different is, I would say, how we provide the services. Okay, every jurisdiction has, the regulations in place, and of course, compliance is at the forefront. But what makes us different? Well, first off, the cost of setting up a license in Seychelles in comparison to other jurisdictions, I would say it's value for money, and it's affordable. So you're not like a client that just come in Seychelles and they want to spend a lot of money and don't get, a return on that, or they feel that, their money is being wasted. So what we do, for example, from the moment that a client comes to us, we make sure that our clients understand what are the perspectives, what are the requirements, what are the benefits, and the time frame as well for them to get their license. So they feel that we are looking at their best interests. So, and as well, the relationship that we have with the regulator. So that also helps us to provide efficient and a timely process for the application. So if clients understand what they need to produce us, and we make sure that we submit the application on time, so time is money. So in the end, client gets what they are looking for, clients are satisfied, but at the same time, also the regulator also is satisfied because everything is compliant and transparent. So I would say that as well. And also maybe the time zone. I mean, if we look at some of our competitors in other jurisdictions, for example, like Belize, with most of our clients coming from Europe, the time zone is only 3 hours difference. So when you are up, we are also up. So when you have questions, you have queries, we can answer you within the same day. But for example, with Belize, you will get another 24 hours up until you get a response. So that also sort of plays to our advantage. So I would say that's sort of what gives us that little competitive edge. I don't know if you have anything else to add.
Sure. I think also the unique structures that we have, I did mention that capital market structures like security dealers, investment advisor license is something that Seychelles has done very well. It's clearly a market leader in the region. So I think it should be the preferred choice for the investors, let's say for a securities dealer's license product. So that's clearly the advantage of Seychelles, because we have tried and tested established product. So I think that's the first thing that stands out in my view. And the other is how quickly we can service the customers, agreeing with Tira on that how quickly we turn around in terms of personalized service to the customers, and turning around the communication along with the regulators is something which we have seen that as compared to many other jurisdictions, we are pretty quick and we can do that much faster. So having, for an entrepreneur who wants to set up a license, once they take a decision, they want to go really fast. They may take so much longer to decide. Once they decide, they want to go fast. And Seychelles, through its effective internal communications, we are able to do that much faster than many other jurisdictions. So I see these two as big advantages. Some products that stand out, and the way we communicate, and the way we take pretty quick turnarounds.
Thank you for that, Mr. Sharma. So what very interesting deliberations here today, very interesting debates, very interesting discussions. We could definitely deliberate more and more about these interesting topics about the Seychelles and keeping up to date, and how the Seychelles is being very proactive and in the forefront of the financial services sector. Something we would not actually could have imagined, because when we picture the Seychelles, it's just the sandy beaches, right? So with that being said, in summary, the Seychelles is a jurisdiction with different investment tools which are designed to cater for the needs of investors with different profiles. As mentioned, the outlooks look very promising and it is very active. So panelists, any final comments for the audience and the investors here today?
Well, on my side, I would say that, anyway, we've spoken a lot about the need to balance regulation and business practices, and this is very much the direction that Seychelles is taking. Whilst we we want to attract the new business into our shores, we also have to think about protection of our clients, of our investors. And in that space as well, Seychelles has made progress in terms of coming up with the Consumer Protection Act, which gives consumers the protection that they needed to be able to feel comforted once they want to venture into investing into the Seychelles. As well, efforts is being made in terms of adhering to financial inclusion measures, data protection as well. So all these are good initiatives and incentives that Seychelles is coming up with to build that framework, to build that right environment to attract foreign direct investment. And in general, yeah, we don't have much time, but I would just say that in general, Seychelles is open for business, and we working with government to push for foreign direct investment to come and to facilitate the ease of doing business for Seychelles. Yes.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much for that.
So visit us in Seychelles. You're welcome. We are open for business. And let's talk structures and how we can help your investments.
Yes. Before the panelists leave, can you please just give them a round of applause, because I have actually learned so much from them, benefited from their expertise. And we wish to really thank them for taking their time for coming here today and giving us the opportunity to get their insights. So thank you very much, panelists. Please note as well that we are located outside. We have a booth. We have a very dynamic team which can help you out, give you more solutions, and having the collaborativeness. And we thank you again, and we thank AFSIC and everyone here present. Thank you very much. We look forward to connect with you.